Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Mark 6 Golf GTD, which you can see behind me here. And yeah, I'm going to do a little walk round of it, and then we're going to take it for a drive and give you my opinion on it and do a few cool shots of it. So hope you enjoy. Just jump straight into the car and get on with it. I thought I'd take the minute to do an actual walk around of the car this time and actually explain a few bits that have been done to it. So this car is a Mark 6 Golf GTD. It came from the factory, or left the factory, with every single optional extra ticked. So inside it's got all the toys, all the bells and whistles. You've got heated seats, cruise control, the nav in the middle, etc. So yeah, it's certainly not short of nice toys to play with. It's also had the HK lowering springs put on it, so as you can see, the actual ride height of it is quite nice. I think the owner wants to get coilovers next for handling purposes, but in terms of stance and the way it sits really nicely on these HK springs. It's had, the other thing is crazy looking massive TTD brakes, so I'll explain a little bit more about those in a bit, but yeah, behind these Revo wheels, which are also super rare, you've got these massive Audi TTS brakes. They stop the car really nicely. They're actually really nice to use. Sometimes big brakes are not great on cars because you need to get heat in them before they actually work, but these work from the moment you set off, even when they're cold. So yeah, and you have to apologise for any of the what you see here, all this, because at the moment we're having some really bad weather in the UK, and well, it's bad all the time at this time of year, and it's really hard to keep a car clean, especially if a car is white like this one. So yeah, it's also been stage 1 Revo tuned, so we're looking at about 235 horsepower, but the real headline figure here, and the one that you want to pay attention to, is the torque and the way that the car delivers it through its DSG box. So yeah, that's pretty much a look at the car from the outside. So now what we'll do is we'll hop in and we'll go from there. I won't go out there and say it as fact, so please don't take it as fact, but as far as I'm aware, Skoda were probably one of the first to really offer a full-blooded diesel hot hatch, which was the Fabia VRS, and since then a lot of manufacturers have followed suit. Volkswagen have been producing the GTD for quite some time now, so they're still doing them to this day, and what they offer is a real compromise between the hot hatch handling and driving kind of experience, but with the diesel economy, low down torque that you normally get from a diesel engine, and it works. I think I covered this off before in a Fabia. I asked the question whether or not a diesel could really be considered a hot hatch, and I think it could be. Diesel engines these days are fantastic. They're well known for making great power, and in the real world they actually offer a more usable sense of power, which is something that you get in this GTD. Petrol hatches are typically cars that you chase the revs in, and you get a lot of satisfaction out of doing that, but at the same time, the GTD here that we're in today offers a lot more accessible power, so you don't spend ages chasing it, it's all there low down, and the DSG box does a great job of delivering that power. You do sometimes have to, when you want to put your foot down, it's an older car, the older DSG, so it's not always as quick to respond when you put your foot down, even in sport. So as the owner said to me, you can use the flappy paddles, which work really well and complement the brakes really nicely. The braking actually on this car is probably way better than it would be on a standard GTD, and that is thanks to these fantastic TTS brakes up front. They stop instantly, and what I quite like about them is when you put big brakes on a car, sometimes you need a lot of heat in them to make them work, but not in this. Like the brakes work straight away. The moment you jump in the car, they're sharp, they're crisp, and they'll rip your face off pretty much, which is great, but only when you want to brake hard. I mean, normally day to day they're actually really nice to use. They offer a really kind of planted feel to the car. They're really certain. I mean, this car is one of the overall things that you get from the Golf as well, is that everything is so sure-footed in this car. The way it handles, the way it turns in, the way it brakes. you really feel at home behind the wheel, and pushing on as well, you feel pretty safe. It feels like a very, very safe car, as most Golfs do, particularly the R that I drove. Even with the 530 horsepower, it never felt particularly terrifying because of the all-wheel drive. So this, of course, although is front-wheel drive, so it's a little bit more hairy in the corners, but it's not that bad. It's actually traction control kicks in quite often, especially in the wet. At the moment we're having some really bad weather. This is unfortunately going to be a reality for me filming these videos now, is working around when it isn't pouring down with rain. But yeah, it puts the power down really well. Traction light comes on in the wet, which is interesting. So yeah, you'll get that a lot. This car's got so much torque that it will just light the front wheels up, because it's front wheel drive and not all wheel drive. In the wet, even with the best tyres on you can possibly get, it doesn't quite offer the grip that you would want. But especially with all these leaves on the floor too. But still, if I want to make progress, I don't have to put my foot right down, and it will just grip and go, which is nice. Anyway, so this car isn't a completely standard Golf GTD. It's had a few bits done to it. So it's got H&R lowering springs. It's been remapped. And it delivers power pretty well because of that, I've got to say. It's pretty quick. I think stage 1 in this is around 230 horsepower, which is what this car is running. But it's not really the horsepower that you really experience in this car, it's the torque. Because I often say horsepower is what you pay for and torque is what you feel, and that is exactly what you get in this car. It's all about the torque, the way the car delivers the power low down. So you put your foot down. The DSG box isn't the quickest, as I said, to kick down, but you can use the flappy paddles to kind of lower it down, and then off you go, and you just get pushed along the road by a wave of torque, which is really nice. So in the cabin, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but it does pump out I'd say probably a slightly artificial noise. So you're not really sure if it's a true reflection of what the engine sounds like. From the outside, the car is quite quiet, but it adds to that ambience of a sporty GTI kind of feel, but of course with that diesel engine up front. It's in sport at the minute, so does get up to speed really well, and it's just effortless the way it drives. And once you're up to speed, it does turn in really nicely. It also helps as well that the owner has got some Pilot Sport 4s on the car, and I have to say they're probably some of the best tyres you can get for all-round performance. You can get tyres that are better in the wet, you can get tyres that are better in the dry, but in terms of a tyre that will do all of it pretty well all of the time, the Pilot Sports probably offer the best sort of all-round package, if you like, and you really, really feel that in this car. Today's quite a wet day, but the car is really, really grippy. And yeah, it's really, really, really quite pokey. Gets up to speed effortlessly, drives brilliantly, solid car to drive, and I've never driven a full-blooded Volkswagen GTI. I have driven the R, and this is very much the same. I mean, it does really feel quite similar. Driving this makes perfect sense at the minute, actually. It's a really nice place to be. I think, as I said in the Fabia video, the diesels in a hot hatch, if you like, work perfectly in the real world. They offer a perfect balance between being fun to drive and then, of course, offering you better economy too. This car at the minute, if I can check properly, I'm getting around 33 and a bit mpg at the minute, so it's not bad. But then if this was a petrol 2-litre GTI, I'd probably be getting around the mid 20s to low 20s, if not slightly lower, depending on how hard you drive the car. So it does offer a perfect balance between that economy and drivability. and all-round performance. I've never actually driven a full-blooded GTI, and I'd love to. I've driven the R, and of course that was silly power and did a silly economy, like 15 to the gallon or less. But this, as a daily, is actually a really nice place to be. Next year, I think I'm going to have to look at getting another daily, and I could probably see myself driving one of these. They offer a perfect balance of the economy and the fun factor too. So the fun factor of this car, and once you get up to speed and you're chucking it in and out of corners and launching yourself out of corners, that diesel engine just comes into its own, especially with the stage 1 map as well, and the flappy paddles, the brakes as well, like everything just sort of comes together to make this all-round package that, yeah, it's just really, really nice. I'm really, really sold on it, and I think I might have to look at getting one next year, because in an ideal world I'd like a 140i, but they're just rear-wheel drive, not always good in the wet or winter, and we have a lot of wet weather in the UK, and also it costs a bomb on fuel, whereas this will probably do around 500 to a tank, if not more, if you drive it sensibly on a run, and that sort of performance and economy that you'd never ever dream of in a normal car, or not a normal car, but a full-blooded hot hatch or super hatch, if you like. So to answer the question then, is the GTD deserving of the title hot hatch? Just like the Fabia VRS, absolutely. In fact, I dare say that this GTD ticks boxes that the GTI just can't really match in terms of real-world performance. Of course, you're always going to get more straight-line performance and probably on a track more fun out of a GTI, arguably. But in the real world, I would actually be quite interested to see how this Stage 1 GTD performs against a more modern GTI, because I believe they've got circa 220 horsepower or 230 horsepower, some of the later ones anyway. So it would be interesting to see, but absolutely this car is deserving of that title and more. So yeah, anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe for more and turn on notifications to be notified when I upload next. Plenty more cool cars coming soon, and again a massive thank you to the owner for letting me use this car for a review. Cheers.